Maybe it's a cliche to say that the cliffs were bathed in colors, that the reds and pinks of the fading sunlight caused the stones to sparkle just slightly, illuminating the scene upon them. The bronze dragon, so sure, so full of himself, rests off in the distance, while a short young man makes his way across the lonely cliffs. The wind ruffles at his hair as he walks, his eyes downcast as if he's searching for something among the stone. He moves carefully, every once in a while, kicking at a little stone, as if he's trying to uncover something. It takes a while for him to traverse the edge of the cliff, to make his way along each side and then back again, until finally his foot finds what it was looking for. He kneels and gently shifts the rock aside, unveiling what could only be the treasure trove of a child. It's a single stone, carved on with rock, the writing awkward, in places barely legible. Natale picks it up and holds it in his hands, cradled. He reads the names thereon, softly, out loud. And he wonders at what the people whose names are on it would think. His eyes cast upwards, and he looks at the bronze dragon who waits. This was his favorite time of day. When the day of his anger began to fade, the sandstorms dying down, before the cool intelligence of the night took over, the manipulative side of Tlazotayzath. Sunset was the evener, the time when they could talk and discuss things, without Natale feeling like he had the lower hand. It was the best time of day, caught between heat and cool. Looking down at the stone, Natale wonders what his mother would think. The bronze was not the partner of his soul that he'd always been led to believe that a dragon would be. He was hard, he was rough, he was violent in a way that Natale's gentleness just simply can't understand. But they'd come to an agreement of sorts. Well, Tlazotayzath had come to an agreement. And Natale goes along with it. For there's worse ways to be. During drills, Natale was in charge. The bronze would do what he asked. He would follow orders. When drills were off, the two would avoid each other. Tlazotayzath retreating to his mountain lair, to the high, lonely cliff where that he had claimed as his own, and Natale would join Eldon in his where for a while each could pretend the other didn't quite exist. But every morning they would come together again, Nate to guard Tlazotayzath and his leathers, and to fly out to meet what was coming. The day of the fall had been the hardest, because, well, Natale hadn't been ready for the violence of this fall. He'd flown it before, with the wings, but this one was different. There was no predicting what had happened. And as the minds of those around him echoed with grief and pain, his heart had shrunk as Tlazotayzath's cheer had grown. For that was the worst part of the bronze dragon, his joy that he found in the sorrow of others. The way that he would look around, and rather than sorrow that life had been lost, he would rejoice that the death at least came well. It was the same attitude he had towards those creatures that he ate, whose hearts he so wished and loved and lusted after. He hadn't been able, Natale, that is, hadn't been able to stay at the where. This last week, it had just been too much. And so, at the end of the day, he and Tlazotezat had pulled away. This morning, the werelings were finally no longer werelings. Though Natail has not felt like a wereling since the moment that the fall ended. It had only been a matter of time. And now, they're gone again, leaving the were to come back to Natail's roots, looking at the name of his mother and his two brothers carved on stone, and wondering if she would have been happy, if she would have been okay with the choice that Natail has made. It wasn't the sea. It wasn't what he had expected or what she had expected for him. Werelinghood had gone by so fast. From the first moments that Tlazotezat had claimed him as his, those bloody moments fighting, the agreement they'd come to in the dark of the night, wondering if anything would ever be okay again, but finding quiet moments of solitude. He smiles as he thinks of Eldon opening his home to him, giving him a place to be when loneliness seemed to wrap around his heart. Of Toral and Cain, who had worked so hard to make sure that they were prepared. Toral never once letting Natail forget who he was and what he was doing, despite the anger that Tlazotezat displayed. There had even been that strange brown rider, who had such strange opinions, but whose dragon Tlazotezat seemed to actually like. Natail isn't quite sure what to do. Natail isn't quite sure what to do. And as he looks down at the stone with his mother's name on it, he's still not sure. His gaze moves upwards, and he looks at Tlazotezat, the way that the sun glints off his skin, almost making it shine. Toral was right. Tlazotezat was glorious. He was beautiful. He was a creature that was made to exist here. Natail's still not quite sure if their bond is right, if the anger and sorrow that Tlazotezat brings up in him was somehow good, or if it was something which required blunting. The stone holds no answers, and Natail slips it in his pocket. He'd bring a piece of his home back with him this time. Walking back towards the bronze dragon, Natail takes one glance out to the ocean. It sees calm. He'd been through hard times before, when his mother had died, when they had first moved to Southern. His life had been upended, but today was a new day, and each day after it would be a new day. There were people at the were who he loved, and even if Tlazotezat never changed and remained angry, remained vengeful, remained prideful to a fault, Natail would deal with it. At times he would sorrow, and at other times he'd rejoice. Tlazotezat turns his gaze, his thoughts echoing the setting sun. The sandstorms died down as just a hint of the beauty of the desert echoes up. The mesquite trees sway in the wind, somehow having managed to survive yet another day. He waits. Natail would come, and they would fly back to the were, and away from the foolishness that Tlazotezat thought that this entire venture was. Natail squares his shoulders and steps forward. Today was another day. Tomorrow would be another day. Their duty would be done. and all would be well.